Welcome to the Real Situation Podcast. Our guest today is the wonderful, the talented Camilla Stærk. And Miss Camilla Stærk is a Danish multi-hyphenate creative whose enduring career has moved fluidly between fashion, interiors, and objects, unified by signature aesthetic of dark romance and restraint. Trained at Ravensbourne in London, she launched her label Stærk in 2000, first as a clothing brand, and it has since expanded into a multidisciplinary practice, treating interiors with the same intentionality as clothing. Now, based in New York, she continues to build a globally recognized body of work defined by consistency, sophistication, and a singular creative point of view where home and wardrobe feels seamlessly connected. And Camilla is at this intersection that I find the most exciting in this, in this career trajectory of yours or this career history of yours. I got to tell you, looking at I know the history of your clothing, but looking at your interiors, I was so struck. It is so beautiful and it has such resonance to what you had done before. So I was really struck by that. So I want to find out the whole story behind all of this. So that is what we're going to interrogate here today on the podcast, Camilla. And here's a little history between us. We know each other from back in the day, really at the start of your career, when you first got out of university. And Camilla, back in those days, it was a time of great hope, a time of great celebration, a time of independence. And you were one of the designers who was launched into fashion with great fanfare. That's not for me to tell. Tell me about those early days when you got out of university and you effectively was launched into fashion in a very, very celebrated way.
I mean, it was incredible. And it was one of the good things about the 25th anniversary last year was that I really made myself really reflect on that, because at the time it all went so fast and I didn't probably enjoy it enough because I just went into, oh, how can I do this in the best way possible, and just work mode and since then. So it's just been enjoyable to really look back at that beginning period and how it happened and how I dreamt for it to happen. And so in my second to last year of college, Ravensbourne, my bachelor degree, we had an internship period, and I chose immediately to go to New York because I was already in love with New York yeah, as a city, and that was an opportunity to come here. I was so lucky to land an internship with Patrick Robinson, which was incredibly inspiring. A small setup. I got to be really involved. I, met friends, including Patrick, Victor, Glamore, like in that period that just are still really close friends today. It was a very important moment for me. And the reason why I start with that is because that internship really manifested something in me that, okay, this is I would like to do this for sure, because I wasn't completely sure up until then. I knew I wanted to do different things. I knew I wanted to do furniture. I knew I wanted, I wasn't completely sure about all the things I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do more than fashion.
Mm.
Anyway, this internship was wonderful and gave me such excitement. And I decided that the final year at college, when I came back to London after that, I would just really, really, really focus on my thesis collection, which is so wonderful that last year of college when you can do that, and just really try and make it the beginning of Camilla Stærk, Stærk, the brand. So that's what I spent. I just worked really, really hard on finding my textures, what is my voice, what is my language. And so I really owe fashion. That is where I found my creative voice. London, being in London, also, being free, feeling that freedom of London, and being able to experiment and going to college there was really incredible. But yeah, fashion and really trying to channel what I'm about into this first collection, my graduate collection. And I was always working retail at the weekends or, afternoons or whatever during college. And at that time, I was working at Brown's Focus. So I got to show, when I was finished with the collection about a month before the show or 3 weeks before the graduate week, I got the opportunity to show the buyer. And Yeda, and she placed an order.
Yeda, yes, Yeda was the buyer back then, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my word, you're taking me back.
And she placed an order on the entire collection. I did not tell anyone. I was just, okay, again, but that's very me. I'm sort of very quiet and I just sort of process it in my own time and just really think about, okay, how do I make this in the best way possible? How do I produce this in the best way possible? Everything was hand sewn. That was part of the thing. However, Yeda told Dame Hilary Alexander, rest in peace. And so, but I didn't know this, but at the graduate fashion week and at the graduate show, Hilary actually wrote a big piece about the fact that I had sold the collection before I even graduated. And yeah, and it ran that next day together with some other highlights, of course, but that then initiated a phone call that next day. I was sitting with my family who was visiting from Denmark for the show. And I got a phone call from Fashion East, which was about Lulu Kennedy. She was about to start Fashion East, this incredible sponsorship initiative in London that still exists today.
Yes, it does.
Yep. And the concept was to support 4 new designers, put on a group show on the official London Fashion Week schedule. And the group show we would have like a moment each, so it was very sort of, it was clear there was 4 different designers. We got a sponsorship to actually make a collection happen. I remember Lulu said, just expand on your thesis collection a little bit, basically. Because I only had 6 weeks or something. So London Fashion Week. I know, I mean 2 months maybe. And we also got paired with a PR company. It was so smart. And we also got given a sales stand at the official London Fashion Week. So it was really solid. It was a solid start platform to be given. And I feel it was just a dream. It was literally more than I could even dream of, because my thesis collection became the beginning of my brand, basically. And for me, the platform to then eventually branch out and make it more. But yeah, I really, I'm so grateful for how it happened. And then I had to figure out how to sustain a business and how to run a business and how to actually, keep going. And that's been the journey,
Of
but
course, that's been the
incredible
journey that
start.
you've been
Yeah,
on, but let's go back to that, to the genesis. Let's go back to those beginning days because you're also taking me back, Camilla. You're taking me back to when this industry was so robust,
yeah,
when these initiatives were in place, where you were really given. I mean, of course, there was a great deal of hope and dreams as a part
of
of the
course. Yeah,
equation, but
yeah,
there was also real foundational things that were provided as well. As you said, you had public relations, you had a retailer, and you had like industry executive support,
yeah,
to help you chart that course. So, and I remember at a time that it was all very new. It was all very new what they were doing, and it was in the support of young independent designers, launching them out into the industry because let's be honest, the industry was starving for the new, the new roster of designers to populate it. So it was actually a necessity, but we witnessed a very, very powerful initiative at a time where many brands were launched during that period. So what I want to ask you though is, you speak about your personality, how you were very quiet and you didn't necessarily reveal any of that information that Brown's Focus had picked up, bought all of your first collection. Now, were you tied into other designers? Were you collaborating with other designers? Because I had lived in London around that time.
Mhm.
And okay, and I'd be remiss if I did not really underscore what an exciting and what a
Oh,
rich creative time that was in London. Those were a very, very important, like sort of renaissance in London
yeah,
in fashion design, in the whole culture in England there. It was tremendous.
yeah,
It was something really palpable, something was really, really happening there. So it was a part of a movement.
yeah.
A part of a movement. But were you plugged into those other young designers, the Christopher Kanes of the world, and those young designers that were also percolating around that time?
Yes, I mean, we started meeting each other. I remember, meeting Peter Jensen and I always had, a good time, and we would meet each other at the sales fairs, and full circle. He has recently been the co-chair of fashion at SCAD Atlanta, and called me in, and that's how I now guest mentor there, and our worlds have met again. I just love it. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. Um, yes, I mean, definitely felt a community, both from the other designers, but also from, the industry as a whole. Like the PR company the small PR company I was put with for Fashion East. Um, Shout out to Tracy Lemarcant.
Oh, Tracy! Oh my girl, you are okay. Wait, this is getting memory lane here. Miss Tracy, of course.
Yes, and that was Tracy. Sorry, I'm plugging in. Um, and we still work together to this day. We've been working on and off together, stayed friends, and today work very closely together. She's based in LA now, but it's just, that was I just feel the community in London and then, you know, New York is and this sort of crossover for me, I would say. It's still very much the same core as it was as I started building at that time. Yeah.
And you had quite this social profile. You were arguably, let's say, one of the early influencers whose identity was really tied into your personal expression, your personal style. You were very, very much out there in the world, selling your things without really selling your things, more selling yourself and inadvertently selling your things. Was that a conscious sort of effort at the time, or it just happened?
Never, never. No, no, it's just me.
Yeah, no, I remember Camilla. I mean, here and in London, I mean, you had quite the profile here in the early 2000s, running around with your turbans and all very, very, very much a woman, an it girl, a woman on the scene. But that kind of exposure, that must have taught you a great deal about this culture of fashion, where that was very important back then, of course.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never really thought about it in that way at all. And also, by the way, it takes a lot for me to not wear the turban. I made a real effort today because
I love it.
it's the turban, that whole, it's a sort of uniform, that is just part of it's been part of my finding my voice. It was part of finding my voice back in college, and then it becomes a safety sort of shield. I feel comfortable with it. I felt it became part of what I had to wear just to feel most comfortable and most sort of protected. It's hard to explain, but it's just also a shyness thing because I'm actually really shy. So it's and that ties into, yes, we were going out a lot, but I was always with my core group of really great friends, chosen family. Um, and we had a great time, and that was really it. There was no sort of thought behind it. It was yeah, again, feel really lucky that I definitely got to get that out of my system going out a lot.
And I want to go back to your mention. I didn't want to skirt over Patrick Robinson because one of my issues in this industry is like the erasure of people's history, the fashion amnesia where you
Yeah.
forget certain chapters in this industry is very strange. Patrick Robinson was one of these celebrated Black designers in this industry whose name really doesn't percolate any longer. And Patrick had worked for so many companies, I believe from like Anne Klein, Calvin Klein. Like he has a very, very, very celebrated resume, but it's just not a name that you know. So I want to find out what in the Patrick Robinson culture sort of like informed your direction into fashion design when you returned back to school at Ravensbourne.
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, the way I saw that this industry can actually be really kind and warm. That's, number one. Patrick doing his thing, what he believed in, what translating his big passion and inspiration into his collection and putting it out there and having support from the industry at the time. And it was just really, really inspiring. And also from a small setup, to me, it sort of said, okay, maybe it's possible, how I dream that it's possible that we start small at least, or we do it small, and and that's exactly yeah, that's what I took back with me, I think, and just beautiful designs, thought out, like yeah, being putting your ideas out there, and really doing it.
And, and and at that time, the freedom, you did feel the freedom
Yeah.
to do these things. It didn't feel insurmountable. It didn't feel like you couldn't reach that place of like, as you said, starting a label on a small scale with your name on the door.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
as we know,
Yeah.
the
Let's be
reality
clear. Yeah.
that was, was also, that became a learning curve. So
Yeah.
you started with this great fanfare. Your first retailer was Bronze Focus, and Bronze Focus, I cannot, downplay how integral they were
Yeah.
to, with Mrs. B, of course, that they were integral to stocking a lot of young designers, giving them space,
Yeah.
sticking with them over time, and
Yeah.
making sure that they really had a space in this industry to sell their wares. And They really did their job as retailer, specifically for these young designers like yourself. But as we know, the challenges then came, after this period of just celebration, the realities of running a business also became quite evident. Now, what were your challenges in running an independent business?
I think the same as many, many others. The so yes, Browns, that first season, that with the London Fashion Week sales stand, that brought other stores, Maria Louisa in Paris, other great stores, which was amazing. And then came some department stores, and then it's like handling getting payments in and getting them on time. And actually, there was a lot of challenges with that. That was a big challenge. And but I had great help. It's literally with my best friend from college, Cassie. She stepped in and helped me. A bunch of interns, so amazing. For 3 years, we sustained it like that. And then there was, always raising sponsorship for the next show, and you sort of you were thrown into this rhythm that you had to upkeep, right? Which
Mhm.
yeah, which took a lot. And so I started stressing out at the back of my head increasingly also because I thought, how am I ever going to, if I'm always running after how to make the next show happen, how to get the payments for orders in, how am I ever gonna make and have time and bandwidth to do those other things that I knew I wanted to do. Even though it was okay that it would take some time. I knew that for sure. But yeah, that was stressing me out. And yeah, you just, it's tough, fashion business is tough. So sort of have to really find your grounding with yourself and check in with yourself, and which I've done many times over the years. And figure out along the way, I guess I've figured out a really happy place where I am today. But anyway, it took a lot of learning curves. Um, and yeah, and then after 3 years, I went into a partnership for 3 years, and then after those 3 years, that ended, and I actually moved to New York. I had then been in London for 10 years at the time, and I knew that I had to live in New York. It's just from a personal perspective. I was in love with New York from the first time I came here. So I thought this is now or never. So it's not going to be easy because I know I have to set up my whole production and development again. I thought that was going to be the most hard thing about it, about the move,
Mm.
not so much everything else. And it was. I was very right about that.
Okay.
Um, but it is what it is. Again, I always say this, but I feel so grateful. I'm really part of a strong community. We help each other, we lift each other up, we advise each other. And that's really what makes this all joyful at the end of the day, despite all the stress, despite, the hardships along the way. I think for me, um, the friendships and the collaborations, the process, working with um, friends on creating stuff, or working with my production partners on how to develop and produce stuff in the best way is just such a joy. I really find that such a joy. And yeah, and navigating. It's always navigating. um, but because of friendships and community, I know it's going to be okay. I always, that's what I would tell myself all these years, I know it's going to be okay. Deep down, I know, it's going to be good.
Well, Camilla, one of the words that we stay on in this podcast is joy,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
because we're people of a certain age. We've we've lived a certain life, and
Yeah.
let's say we're on the other side. And so I think being happy, having joy, especially keeping that joy within a creative process,
Yeah.
is so important. And also, I also find that a lot of our peers do not necessarily have joy in their present work life because of where they have ended up.
Yeah.
So for you to project that joy, I think that's huge. But I want to drill down on that, is that in how you have been able to still find the joy even within the tumult
Yeah.
of a career. And
Yeah.
so, but before you've had to make some transition. So I want to find out though, when you decided to come to New York,
Mhm.
was designing, because when you became multi-hyphenate, that's an important detail for me to ask about.
Yeah.
So when you were planning to move to New York, was that to be continuing to be a fashion designer, or had you diversified in your output at that time?
It's a perfect question because I had not yet expanded, and I was stressing about it. And I thought, you know what, this move is a chance for me. I'm sort of in many ways starting over, in some ways not at all, but in many ways I am, like from the inside, from an inside perspective, I'm starting over. I have to set up again, find my structure. Although on the outside, I'm continuing, went straight into doing a presentation at New York Fashion Week. Again, so supported, supported by the industry and people in the industry. So, but on the inside, I had to set up again, and I thought this is my chance to make this expansion happen and really think about how I need to set up differently in order to make that happen. And what changes do I need to make, and also how do I make that? So I started saying it out loud. I started saying out loud, I really want to do home interiors. I really would like to do furniture. Um, and so that was one thing. And and the other thing was it took some time, but I stepped down from doing shows and started doing a much smaller scale production, whether it was um, presentations or a short film, which I love doing. So that got me into short film as a media in what I do. And so that I could free up time to do other things. And, of course, income, which then would I had started doing a lot of consultancy work, which I love doing. Yeah, consultancies, design consultancies, and design collaborations. Sometimes a lot of time behind the scenes, and sometimes not. Sometimes it's a collaboration out there. But I love that because I love collaboration so much,
Mhm.
and I really see it was a way of has been and is a way of sustaining myself and my business, but I enjoy it because I also really see it as something valuable. I have to constantly apply what I do to someone else's work, which is really, great a great way of honing in on what you do, because and finding those balances of how do I honor and this other brand in the best way, while still applying, what I'm here to do. And I think that's been so interesting and so good. And and it also makes you more and more just so grounded in what you do, right? Because you know exactly what you stand for. And anyway, so
Wait, Camilla, I do want to ask this
yeah,
though. Do you think that you were driven into, a lot of these collaborations? You mentioned income because of you needed to increase your income, or was it just like a natural evolution into collaborating with some of your peers? What was the driver for the collaborative period?
both. And it started really early. My first consultancy was in back in London in 2004 through Tracy, and it was with Liberty London, you know, and that I mean I loved it. I just found it so inspiring. Also just to step out of your own zone for a minute and be in another environment and yeah, and be inspired and see how they do things. And then always, you know, with the collection and the shows, I would always collaborate with friends or creatives who became friends, you know, on different stuff. And whether it be jewelry, with Eddie Bogo, or you know, different things. And I just love that part. And then luckily, you know, in 2008, around 2008, I had just started a consultancy that it was just so important actually for me because that's also, you know, the financial crash was not easy on anybody.
Of
So
course.
yeah, so that was just really amazing timing and but again so enjoyable. And I did that together with um, Yuki James, and it was in Japan
Mhm.
for a number of years. So great. We had to go all the time. So amazing. And after that one, we did another Japanese consultancy. And again, it was just, I mean, I'm lucky to say it's a combination of things. It's out of, you know, yes it's out of sustaining myself, but it's something that I really enjoy most of the time. Yeah, so and that happened organically. It had been building from very early on to do other projects, you know.
So I'm a bit riveted. I'm a bit riveted by your delivery because it's just reminding me of a time when there was real creativity. It wasn't so commercially co-opted. It wasn't so
No,
owned. Like there
no,
were opportunities to really be a proper creative. And that's what I'm leaning into that's what I'm
yeah,
leaning into as you speak, actively comparing it to this time.
yeah, yeah,
And thinking of just how different it is, just how different it is. But
yeah,
it seemed like, Camilla, like, a lot of our peers didn't get to make those kind of choices. You seem, yes, some of it was the economics, was driven by the economics, but also it seemed like you had a great deal of opportunity to be collaborative, to really expand your creative vocabulary and your creative language through these
yes,
collaborations. That
yeah,
that seemed like a really exciting time for these opportunities that you had.
yeah, definitely. And so then back to the home stuff, because I was saying it out loud. I got contacted by this great furniture retailer in company, design company in Denmark called Norman Copenhagen. And they said, we read somewhere that you would like to do home. Well, why don't we do a collaboration? So that's how my very first piece of a home piece came to life. And that was 2008, they called it. We launched it in 2009. And it was a rug because they were saying, why don't we start with a rug? So that was really the beginning of a very, very slow and organic build of my home collection that I then started to do. You know, as and when I could, I would add on another rug design, another, you know, a lamp, a pendant light, and I would do it over a number of years, and it would just happen sort of organically. There was an exhibition that I was asked to do in Copenhagen, like actually a solo exhibition, which I made obviously about, I made it a lot about, I mean, made it about a look into the process of how I work, a look into the different areas, so fashion, home, film, and a big celebration of collaboration. So yeah, brought different collaborations into that. But because of that exhibition, that was in 2014, there was an opportunity to make a few more home pieces happen, with support from my production partners there, and so just very, very, very slowly, and I've just been presenting it online as part of my direct consumer made to order business alongside the fashion. And then I would get asked to do a concept for a Camilla Stærk concept for a hotel in Copenhagen to do with rugs, textiles. So I did, so that was another opportunity to get, do some more rug designs and accessories for a hotel. And so I was sort of, just very organically be able to build this. And then I have to also say I'm from a furniture family, not furniture designers, but furniture family in different ways. On my mother's side, production of furniture. On my dad's side, modern Danish furniture merchants, and also Danish antique dealers. And my dad was a very loved and eccentric character in the Danish furniture business, who is was a big inspiration to me. My mom equally so, for a whole different reason. She's a horse breeder. And you can see both in my work. But I had been sketching out. My dad passed away 3 years ago, but before then I had been sketching out my sort of 3 pieces of furniture that I wanted to somehow make a reality. But with it needed to, be with the right partners on board, So anyway, I sketched out these 3. I got to show them to him. So I'm very happy about that. And it actually took a couple of years before I got the opportunity to show these 3 sketches to 20th Gallery in Los Angeles, a gallery I really, really admire, a design gallery I just had admired for years. And Tracy got me that meeting, and which was wonderful. And that's how my first piece of furniture came to life, the signature chaise #1, which is what Stefan, the one of the 2 owners, chose immediately. And then I made that happen somehow, and launched it. And yeah, really, really important step for me. And at the same time, this was in 2023, but I worked on it for a year prior. And that sort of around the same time, I had been asked to apply what I do to Elis, the New York restaurant by one of the 2 founders of Noma Copenhagen, Mads Refslund, who had been talking to me for a long time about bringing me on board to do something creative for his restaurant when he got to open it. And he had finally found a space and gotten to a point in the renovation where he could bring me in. So I spent a really enjoyable year also doing that, which ended up becoming, well, the rugs, all the rugs, um, all the lighting. So I got to create, 3 new light designs. So that was what was in the foyer, in the bar lounge, and then a third style over each dining table. And I ended up designing all the uniforms, where I immediately called my first intern in New York, who then became my assistant, and then she started out on her own, and then is still my really great friend today. Elikana, I called her immediately because she has a company specializing in uniforms for hospitality. So like, this needs to be a collab between you and me. So that's what we did. So that was really, really great, and important. And then at the same time, around the same time, I got reconnected with Omar, at Design Within Reach, the creative director at Design Within Reach, the great Omar Nobile. And I didn't actually, I got a meeting, which I was so excited about, to show my work and what I've been slowly working on since 2008, this little collection, of home interiors. And but including the new lights for Elis and all of that. And I didn't put two and two together, but when I stepped into the office, Omar said, "Well, Camilla, we know each other from a past life, fashion, and we met my very first season, in the fashion showroom in Paris, where I was selling my collection. Omar was there with Hussein Chalayan. So, and anyway,
Omar, of course I know Omar. Oh yes, actually I just saw him last year in Paris. I know, gosh, yeah, all of these people I know, Camilla. But yes, carry
yeah,
on.
yeah, I'm taking you back.
You're really taking me back.
Um, and anyway, we had a great meeting, and really what meant the world to me, that Omar said, immediately, was, Camilla, you have, because again, from someone who knows me from the very beginning, from starting out like you, he said, you've always stuck to what you're about.
And And
Yeah.
actually, sorry to interrupt you there, Camilla, but that's actually a good juncture for me to ask. Well, what exactly are you about?
Yeah.
What is,
What am I
what
about?
is, what is the connective tissue that sees you going from clothing to rug to lighting installation to the whole world of interiors? What's your creative community tapping into you for, and how do you define that?
Yes, and you know, I it's I would say an intersection of, if I have to put words on it, but it's really not something it's just something has that I'm expressing, and it seems to be an intersection between old Hollywood noir and certain old Hollywood, yeah, glamour noir, combined with my Danish heritage. Um, and I think probably, and then, there's an equestrian influence always. So how to put all that eloquently is I'm sure there's much more elegant way to say it, but I think it's literally a result of me growing up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, um, being equally inspired by my parents. My mom was a horse breeder. I could ride before I could walk. I had, a really rich life, on that side of things. My dad, was based there, but also part-time in Copenhagen, where he was running his furniture business. And so every time I had school holidays, I would go in and go to work with him, and that was really exciting, and not just seeing, sometimes I would get to see the making of furniture, but also seeing how he approached things. Another great advocate for collaborations and putting people together. The way he put things together, was so eclectic. Totally very different style for me, actually. But I think what I took from that, when I think about it, is the courage to sort of mix unexpected things, and unexpected arts in one, and make it an expression. So he would do installations, or initiate installations all over the world, basically with Danish furniture, but mixed with American and different arts and unexpected combinations. And I think that's key for sure in my expression. And yeah, there's always a Karen Blixen inspiration in my work.
Well,
It's
that's Isaac Dennison, right? Isaac
yeah,
Dennison,
yeah,
the author out of Africa.
yes.
What is the fascination with Isaac Dennison?
Well, she was Danish, and
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, and again, so we have to read her in school from very early age, and I was always fascinated because I think I was fascinated. Well, I loved her storytelling. I love her storytelling. So storytelling is obviously, also. For many years I wanted to be a writer.
Mhm.
So the storytelling, and then I was fascinated with her courage to, in the 1920s, as a woman, go and set up a whole different life in Africa. And then she ended up back in Denmark, but that and her life in Africa, and the books she wrote and how it was documented, and I mean, it was just incredible. And then her whole persona too, there was something.
She was quite swashbuckling. Like
Yeah.
she had quite an air about her.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and yeah, she just dared to be herself 100%. And I think, yeah, that's probably the root of it.
Now, how do you decide? And actually, before I ask how you decide, what does your business currently looks like? If you were to allocate percentage to your output, how much interiors you're doing, how much furniture, is fashion still indexing in your world?
Mhm.
What does your output look like currently?
Yeah, I would say definitely interiors, the furniture have taken the main seat in the last few years.
Okay.
And um, which I'm thrilled, because I am so lucky to be you know, represented by 20th Gallery and Design Within Reach, incredible partners. I am so thrilled. It's like literally, it's a dream come true. And I've been very focused on that for the last few years, and that will hopefully continue. And then so going back to my 25th anniversary, one of my promises to myself last year was to celebrate and honor my fashion roots, like put some more focus on my fashion. Uh,
Okay.
so stay tuned.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
all I'm gonna
Fantastic. It
say.
seems like there's an announcement on the horizon.
Yes.
But I started off by really complimenting you on your interiors. Oh, well, yes, of course they're quite fashionable. Of course, I see your identity in the interiors with a reflection on fashion. But I want you to kind of express that to me. I mean, what are you lifting from the fashion space and applying it into your interior environments? Like I love that communication, but I want to hear that from you. How do they speak to each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, I hope it's very evident that they come from exactly the same place. Really, and sometimes you can actually see it how, and I did this in my exhibition, I would display the original, you know, spine dress. So this dress I did many years ago with this, and I developed a spine print for it, and that later became a rug. That spine print later became a rug. And um I have my leather corset light, a leather and brass light, which is inspired by corset lacing. And I think, well, I think that going back to my thesis collection, my root, the root of what I do is very much about my work in leather. And the challenge with that I gave myself during that thesis, working out my language in the thesis collection was, how do I make leather not feel heavy? How do I make it feel unexpectedly drapey and unexpectedly light? What do I need to do? I need to combine it with the lightest thing I can find, and I need to put it in a certain context. I need to treat it in a certain way. I came up with my signature leather armor during that time, and
Mhm.
that has stayed with me. It's still my signature clutch, which is now, Omar commissioned to become a pillow series as part of my collection that I have
Mm.
within reach. It's what inspired Mass at Elis. He said, I want that clutch. I want that at Elis. So figure it out. An abstract brief, but a dream brief, right? So
Right.
yeah. So it's literally taking and being asked to do what I do in fashion, or asking myself to do what I've been doing, or find that my language is in fashion and translating that. I have the leather drape pendant, another brass and leather light, which is, half solid brass and hard, and half a drapey leather piece. You can trace everything I do today, whether I do a lamp or a dress, or a piece of furniture. You can trace it back. I really feel you can trace it back to my very first collection, in some way or another, if I explain it to you, maybe. But yeah, I think, in my first collection, there was a skirt that was partly very structured and with very fine, like structured hand stitching, and then the half of it was sort of raw, exactly like my drape pendant. And Yeah, I think one thing that I thought from the beginning with the home is to be wary of. I hope, I always aim for those designs to hopefully speak to, you know, a men, women, like it has, and not overtake a room. It can be special and unique, but it needs to complement. It needs to be able to complement and also be quiet.
Well, what I like about this portrait is that you're really exemplary of a modern creative career. It's without boundaries, is not singularly disciplined. And I think that's a prescription for any modern day creative. There you can
Yeah.
meander over into the interiors, back into fashion, all things, especially if you're creative, one can do. And as you said, some of this was motivated by economics, but also a lot of this was motivated by by the talents that you felt that you have, that was not sort of restricted. That's what I love about this delivery. And I think for the young creatives out there right now, they do need to approach life not just with like, okay, I want to be just a fashion designer, because that dream and that goal, that could morph in the middle of that ascendancy, and you've become something else. But that's
Yeah.
not a limitation,
No.
that's expansion.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really, it's passion, at the end of the day. I mean, I have to create. I have to. I love it. And it's and I'm so happy that today there's much more of a um an opportunity to do different things. In during the years, it's not always been easy at all for so many different reasons, but also the fact of that I wanted to do different things. It was very much like, well, can't you just stick to one thing? And really, no, in my heart, I would love to do it all because it all speaks to each other. Everything is interrelated for me. And that's the part of the big joy is to be able to do different things for me.
In doing those different things is longevity. Well, yeah, I would imagine you want to continue to create. So longevity is an important part of this equation, right? You want to
Yeah,
continue to create in the capacities that you want,
always,
for the end of time.
always, always. Yeah.
Now, looking back, what part of your creative journey still feels unfinished? And what are you building towards now? It seems like there's an announcement, a pending and some announcement on the horizon somewhere. You don't seem quite ready to release that information quite yet, but any little bit that you can release to us now in terms of what's on the horizon for Miss Camilla
Yes,
Stark.
yes. Well, I can't be completely specific, but I can say this. Well, it's what you said, first of all. My hope is, that I will just be able to continue creating and developing new things and collaborating. And uh, there's one specific thing that I'm working on that hopefully I can reveal more about very soon. But it goes back to very much collaboration, craftsmanship, and the whole joy of doing this. And I'm right in the middle of it, and it's just, yeah. I'm very, very excited, and yeah, and it's going back to the roots. So that's all I will say.
Well, I love that, but you know what I've loved most of all, and I forgot which one of my prior guests also communicated this. This great deal of optimism that I have taken from my
Yeah.
exchange with you. I I love that, but it also begs the question, why haven't the travails of this industry sort of like settled in you like a cancer? Why are you why are you so optimistically positioned as opposed to, sort of like, spewing some of the bitterness that a lot of our peers do?
Oh yeah, no, that's just not my personality. I'm really I am really an optimistic, positive person. Otherwise, I don't think I would be sitting. I really am. Yeah, I just yeah, it's just yeah, me.
Well, I love that, Camilla. You certainly have spoken to how that optimism rather has impacted your creativity over the years and continues to do so. So we do not want any interruption to that at all. But I do want to thank you so much, Camilla, for really sharing such intimate information from your career, from your history, from your resume. It was really, really, really fantastic to talk to you this morning. One of the things that as I said in the beginning of this conversation, is just that I love to hear of the journey or the history that, my peers have been on. I think that it can only inform this young generation. You see these young people with starry-eyed
Yeah.
about entering this industry. And one of the things I think is important is just to communicating to them that people have done so much before their time, and they do not have to start from day one. And there's so many people, including like yourself, to learn from. And I feel that that's a part of my responsibility, having had such experiences in this industry to impart to those, to those up and coming, because it is a mercurial industry. And but however, I feel that we're so committed to it because we like what we like, and we like fashion, we like good taste, we like design, and we should be able to work in this creative space, in spite
Yes.
of all the ills that we find in it. And I think that you have continued to keep your lane clear and continue to be, inspired to be creative. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Thank you so much, Jason. And thank you for doing this podcast. It's, yeah, really
Now,
important.
this is great fun for me. So thanks again, Camilla. Lovely to chat with you. And I certainly will be looking out for that news on the horizon.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a wonderful one.